Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Brian Scott with you. As you may know, we are studying where we are in God's timetable. This is Insights to the End Times, and we have been sharing these podcasts with you for several years now. We're beginning our third year. This is 2024. Imagine that. We're already in a brand new year. Today is the end of the first week, Saturday, January the 6th. And we've been looking at some of the things that Jesus told us about in the book of Matthew 24, as well as in Mark 13, and Luke 17 and chapter 21. In Matthew 24, Jesus was asked questions by his disciples. And there were three questions asked of him in verse number 3. The latter two deal with the end. They said, what will be the sign of your return, and what will be the sign of the end of the age? So Jesus is addressing his disciples, giving them an answer. In the book of Mark, it says there were four disciples who asked the question: Peter, James, John, and Andrew. And so Jesus is answering them in verse number 4, 5, 11, and 24. He talks about deception. He said many people are going to be deceived. Many people are deceivers. They're going to lead you astray. They're going to cause you to listen to something that is contrary to truth and lead you astray. And we see this occurring, obviously, in our world today. We just have so many things occurring that are so backwards. For instance, what comes to mind is the East Coast Ivy League universities. When a friend of ours that was asked to speak to them on the American Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and so on and so forth, he asked them a question: can you describe or define for me freedom of speech? Their answer was, you have the right to say anything that I agree with. How is that freedom of speech? That is nowhere close to freedom of speech. But that's the way they think now. You have the right to say anything that I agree with. That's why we have so much turmoil occurring in our world today over this war in Israel vis-a-vis the Hamas, the terrorist group. They have got this all distorted in their way of looking at it, and it's atrocious. It really is off course. But this is the true definition of deception. We want to lead you astray off course. Jesus went on in verses 6 and 7 to talk about other things that would occur. These are physical signs. He talked about wars and rumors of war. He talked about nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. He also talked about some physical signs that would occur. They include famines, earthquakes, and pestilence. And yesterday we looked at famines. And even though we don't have famine in North America, where we're from, we're in Ontario, Canada, I don't ever recall a famine situation, but there are real famine occurring all around the world. About 10% of the world's population is under the threat of famine all the time. Today I want to talk about earthquakes. That may seem like a very strange thing, but it's very real again, and not only very real, but very destructive. What's really interesting about this right now at the present time is that on Monday of this week, which was January 1st, 2024, Japan suffered a massive earthquake. It measured 7.5 on the Richter scale, which I'll get to in a few minutes. And there's a strong threat of another tsunami. Now, an earthquake of 7.5 is called a major earthquake. It's a serious earthquake causing a great deal of damage. And Japan suffered an earthquake of a similar size in nature back in 2011. They got hit with a massive tsunami. It wiped out a great deal of the nation. 20,000 people is the estimate of the number that died in that earthquake and that tsunami. So it was categorized as a 9.0 on the Richter scale, which is called a great earthquake. We have earthquakes occurring all over the world. Jesus prophesied that there would be earthquakes in these last days leading up to the end. And in fact, if you have been with us in any length of time in our insights, when we start talking about the end of the age, and we get into the book of Revelation, and we get into the 7 years of tribulation, many of the things that occur there involve an earthquake. And it's through an earthquake that God wins victories in short order. That's for another day, another time. But I want you to be aware that we have earthquakes occurring everywhere all the time. Let me give you some statistics for a moment here. A 5.0 earthquake on the Richter scale is a moderate quake. Then we have the 6.0. That is a strong one. A 7 is called a major one. An 8 is called a great one. 9 is total destruction. Now, each number, as you go up the Richter scale, indicates that there's 10 times as much shaking going on and 33 times as much energy being released. Now, why am I sharing this with you? Because we don't recognize this. We haven't really suffered through this. These earthquakes occur other locations. So since it's not in our backyard, here in North America, we don't pay much attention to it. And these warnings from Jesus take on very little importance. But let me just give you an idea of what these Richter scale numbers mean. A 5.0 means that 20 million kilograms of TNT, it's the equivalent of 20 million kilograms of TNT exploding. A 6.0 is the equivalent of 60 million kilograms of TNT exploding. Now, if you're not familiar with kilograms, a kilogram is about 2.2 pounds. So multiply these numbers by 2.2, and you have a pound equivalent. I'm talking about massive. Now, a 7 is 20 billion. An 8.0 is 60 billion. Japan just got hit with a 7.5. That's somewhere in the vicinity of 40 billion kilograms of TNT power having been released against them. Now, I did a search just before coming into this session today, and as of January the 2nd, there had been 827 earthquakes over that 24-hour period, ending at noon on January 22nd. 827, and 14 of them were higher than a 5.0. In the past 7 days leading up to January 22nd, I should say, there were just under 7,000 earthquakes. Most of them, of course, were in the 2 to 3 to 4 level, which are tremors that you barely even feel, but they're still occurring. They're picked up by the sensitive instruments. In the past 30 days, not 7 days, but 30 days, there were 32,000 earthquakes. In the past 90 days, there were over 105,000 earthquakes. And in the past year, including first part of January this year, over 407,000 earthquakes. So why am I sharing that with you? Because Jesus prophesied that earthquakes would be one of the signs of the end times. And because they don't occur in our backyard as a rule, we don't pay attention to that. But they are occurring in great numbers. The majority of them are in the lower ranges, which are tremors. But that earthquake that occurred in Japan earlier this week, on January the 1st, there were 155 subsequent earthquakes associated with it. Jesus told us you're going to see an increasing number. And yes, we are. We just aren't aware of it. We're going to kick off next week with some more information out of Matthew 24.